You join us on the third and last day of the first ever KTM rally to have happened in India. I have had a great time and it's been a really interesting experience for a number of reasons. For one, I am riding the new KTM 390 Adventure R, which is what we're going to be telling you about today. But there's also other things like primarily riding with the incredible Chris Birch. He is an incredibly down-to-earth person who spends time talking to everyone and giving us lots of little tips and advices. And every time you take on an obstacle, you learn something new from these guys. There's also fantastic trainers from KTM India's side, people like Dave Venkatesh and a lot other who are really helpful. I will say one thing about the KTM Adventure Rally is that the level is fairly medium to high level if you're a newer adventure rider. So if you're someone who's just bought an adventure bike and not so comfortable to off-road, maybe you want to do one of KTM's smaller, more regional rallies before that, and then move on to the adventure rally whenever it happens again sometime next year. So that's what the Adventure Rally was about. This is a 390 Adventure R. Now I have been riding this bike all 3 days here and each day has been a slightly different experience. We don't have our own film crew with us, unfortunately, so whatever visuals you're going to see is mostly of my own action camera and maybe whatever supporting footage we get from Bajaj. But this bike, in a nutshell, is easily the most off-road capable adventure bike made in India today. It has some problems, but if you want an off-road capable adventure bike, it does not get much better than this. With that said, let's talk about first what the 390 Adventure R is. It's essentially the Adventure in its purest form, which means it has a 21-inch, 18-inch rear wheel, unlike the Adventure S, which has 21/17. It's got the full long travel suspension that you get in the international spec Enduro R. So more suspension travel, more ground clearance, and more importantly, better suspension. I think that KTM compromised the suspension on the Adventure S. They made it a little too soft. This does not have that problem. The other aspect that you'd want to know quite soon about the Adventure R is that because of all that, this is a tall motorcycle. That's an 880 seat height. For me, not really a problem. I quite like it, but shorter riders will find that challenging. Now, this is not a turn-off. Some of the adventure trainers out here are not tall people, folks like Nelly and Dave, but they're incredible riders. There is technique and there is skill that you can gain to work around this. But again, if you're new to adventure bike riding, something to keep in mind. Let me show you what the riding position is like. Seated, it's very similar to the existing 390 Adventure S because there's no change in this relation as such, seat height to foot peg ratio. It's not cramped in any way, but it's a little tight, and you feel that after a long day of off-road riding and then the road ride back, slight cramp out here maybe, but this is still a very spacious and comfortable riding position for road use. What I'm not a fan of so much is the off-road riding position. It's not bad, but I think it could be better. Two things to consider here. I'm coming off the 890 Adventure R, which I recently rode, and that has incredible ergonomics. This bike leaves a little to be desired. Let me show you. The bike is at an incline, but I'll show you what I can. The grip out here, particularly on the 890, is incredible. You really can free up your arms and hold onto the motorcycle with this. That's one thing that I feel could be a little nicer on this bike. And the other aspect is that the bar does seem to be slightly low. Now, if you get into the correct, appropriate off-road riding position, it's not bad, but I feel like I would like a handlebar riser, and I was having a chat with Chris Birch about this. His recommendation was really interesting, is that maybe slightly lower foot pegs, because he's not a fan of changing the handlebar position, especially with risers. He thinks that doesn't do very well for off-road bikes in terms of how you connect with them, and he knows best. Now, what's so nice about this bike off-road is that it all comes together really well. Day one, we had some really high-speed patches on rocky surfaces, hitting speeds of 90, 100 kilometers an hour, flat out, fourth gear, and the suspension is working with the terrain. It also reminds me of what a nice chassis this is. I had that sensation on the Adventure S as well, that you're going flat out, you hit a bump, and the bike's composure is really good. That comes down to a chassis level thing, not just suspension. And this motorcycle, I think the chassis is one of the most impressive things about it. But then we moved on to different drills, some slower speed stuff, steep climbs, big drops, loose surfaces, dropping down steps of rocks. And in that sort of a situation, the suspension has the plushness within it to work with the terrain. You can adjust the suspension damping, and it's not a huge difference, but there's a very noticeable difference when you play with the compression and rebound at the front end. If you're going fast, you want more support from the front end, firm it up. You want more pliancy over slower technical terrain, you can open it up. And I did enjoy playing with the suspension settings there. Whatever I asked of this motorcycle, it did it without any fusses. I never dropped it once. I really got along with the bike very well. Another thing that I have noticed is that the engine tune seems to be a little better. When I first rode the early enduros and the adventures, they would stall a little easily at low speeds. KTM issued a recall internationally for this. They said India doesn't get the recall, but this engine does seem to be performing better. I have not had any unusual stalls. I've stalled it a couple of times, but that's just down to me. So that is an area that has improved as well. And I also like the overall gearing of the bike. It's nice out on the highway, it's flexible on the trail, and I think the engine works fairly decently. Still not a fabulous engine for this purpose because it's a little weak on the bottom end and then it really picks up above 6,000 RPM. So you've got to manage it, but then you have the electronics. You can customize your off-road mode. You can turn the throttle response into rain mode, keep the traction off, keep the rear ABS off, and customize the bike for the kind of terrain you're on. And in that sense, the 390 Adventure R adapted to everything that we asked of it, and I really enjoyed that. Another thing that I find really impressive with this motorcycle and a few others that have it are those Mitas Enduro Trail Plus tires. These things are phenomenal. They're the same tires on the 890 Adventure R. I've spent 2 weeks now on these tires and they just do everything. You lower the pressures to 18, 17 PSI for off-road riding, really slow stuff in water crossings where you want as much traction as possible. They work. You keep them at about 25 PSI and hammer through trails. They work. You even ride on lowish pressures on the street, it doesn't give you wobbly feedback. You put it on nice street pressures, you get good handling balance. I have the confidence to lean this bike over. These tires are fantastic. They've given me a really nice sense of feedback, especially in soft, loose mud. And I wouldn't want to put anything more knobby on this bike unless I'm going into monsoon sort of slush. Otherwise, this tire is really great. It's probably the best adventure tire I've experienced at this price point. Right, now let's talk about what I don't like. But before that, I think we should address that low-mounted exhaust. It's caused a lot of concern across the world. We went through a fairly deep water crossing yesterday. Lots of people dropped their bikes in there. It was submerged for pretty much everyone. Everyone emerged with wet boots. I managed to get through the crossing quite peacefully. Again, thanks to the tires, thanks to low pressure, good advice given to me by some very senior specialist riders like Vijay Parmar and Dave, who just helped me get through that terrain. But what I'm trying to say is that that exhaust really hasn't been a problem for anyone. We have submerged it, and as long as you remember to kill the engine when the bike falls over or as soon as it falls over, you're okay. It's not been a problem. What I don't like, and my biggest issue with this motorcycle, it's a personal thing, is I think this windscreen is far too tall. I don't like how close it comes to my helmet off-road, and especially if I make a mistake and I go too far forward, this could cause some damage. I don't like that. I also have mentioned this earlier that this windscreen blocks a little too much cooling air in our hot environment. People abroad or people riding in colder places will love the wind protection that this gives you on the highway. It is really very nice, 120, 130 kilometers an hour, good wind protection. But for me, it's a little too much, and especially on an R, I would like a smaller, shorter windscreen like you get on the 890 Adventure R. I think that would work with this bike. Something else I've noticed with every 390 Adventure new gen that I've ridden so far is that after a while, you start hearing buzzing from the plastic. Yesterday, I got a minor buzz that started on day one. It got really quite bad on day two. I was quite convinced I'd broken something in there. And I've been putting this bike through quite a lot. But it wasn't the windscreen, it wasn't the number plate. And we later found out there are just some bolts in there that need to be tightened again. So nothing was broken is what I'm told. But it's something I've noticed, and if you're going to bash this motorcycle, you should expect to hear some buzzy plastics and be okay with that. On the topic of buzz, this is a vibey engine. It's not a smooth, refined thing. There's this particularly strong resonance that appears and goes about 5,200 RPM. First you feel it in the bars, then you feel it through the foot pegs and it goes away. High-speed cruising is not so bad, but at about 80, 90, you're going to feel it. Now, I have reacted to that vibration differently in this terrain because I have enjoyed what this bike has done so much that I don't mind the vibration. It's an off-road bike, I'm having a great time. But when I ride the Adventure back in Mumbai, I commute on it, I use it as a regular motorcycle. These things do irritate me, the vibration from the sound and the vibration. So it depends on what you want from this bike and what you're going to be happy with and what is going to make you unhappy. That's something for you to think about. On that topic, I do believe that the Himalayan is still a more plush, comfortable, all-round usable adventure bike. If you just want a really comfortable adventure bike, that is still the way to go. But if you want to play off-road, if you enjoy pushing your limits, this is a different league. This is a step above, and there isn't anything else like it out there. So know what you want, and you'll find what you like. On the topic of small practicalities, this is not great for mounting luggage because you don't have too many options. So you probably want to look at something aftermarket, or maybe KTM can create a aftermarket rack. That's one thing. Someone else borrowed this bike from me and did drop it, and the protection did its job. I mean, this takes a solid bashing. It's really solidly mounted. It slides out here on the road. Nothing is broken. Pick up the bike, carry on. So these are tough motorcycles. A lot of people have dropped them over the last 3 days, and there are no major failures. You just continue riding. Finally, price-wise, it's not bad. It's about 3.8 lakhs ex-showroom. The only downer is that this does not get the tubeless rims that you get on the 390S. Up and down, if you're a road rider and you get a puncture, that's a pain. If you're an off-road rider, you know how to take the wheel off, you bend the rim, you still have a tube in there, you can get home. So yeah, there are plus and minus points to having a tubeless system or a tube system. This is tube, and you need to decide if you're okay with that. But overall, yeah, I have thoroughly enjoyed the 390 Adventure R. This to me is the finest form of the 390 in India today. I liked the Enduro the most, but now with the bigger fuel tank and the more practicality of this motorcycle, I think this is now my favorite. If you're into off-road riding, don't think about it. It doesn't get better than this.